Hi there, Jeep owners. Today in your 2007 Jeep Wrangler, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install
the etrailer.com Invisible Base Plate Kit. So there's going to be a total of 5 main components needed to flat tow your Wrangler down the road safely. First one's going to be the base plate, and that's going to provide us with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. So the tow bar here is going to be your second main component. This is going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of your Jeep to the back of your motorhome. The third main component is going to be safety cables, and these are going to be there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. These are going to keep your Jeep connected to your motorhome. The fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring, and this wiring, what it's going to do is transfer the lighting functions from the back of your RV to the back of your Wrangler, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, our fifth main component is going to be a braking system. And what that's going to do is apply the brakes in your Wrangler whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, helping to bring you to a more predictable and safe stop. This is what your base plate is going to look like whenever you're not using it, whenever you're not hooked up to your motorhome. And honestly, I think it looks pretty good. For the most part, it is going to be completely hidden. You are going to see this portion here where your arms come in, and just a little bit here on the driver's side. But what you can see kind of has that almost that off-road appearance to it. So I think it definitely matches up with the front of the Jeep. And to be honest with you, just about any accessory you throw at a Jeep ends up looking good and kind of blending in. A nice little touch that we do get with the base plate is these caps. And when you're not using it, they plug in there, and that's going to really help kind of keep it protected from, moisture and dirt and debris getting inside of there. That way it'll work smoothly in the future. Now, whenever you are ready to use the base plate, it's going to be super easy, and that's because it does have these removable type arms. And what you're going to do with these is just put them in, then rotate them about quarter turn. And if you see there's a hole in the arm, that's going to line up with the hole in the base plate. You're going to take this pen, just work that through. And that's all there is to it to get them in place and ready to go. And it's set up the same over on the other side. Now, whenever you are ready to hook up to your motorhome, it's going to be super straightforward. You're just going to take the tow bar, line it up with your base plate, put your pin and clip through. Safety cable openings are going to be easy to get to as well. So you'll snap those on and then plug in the rest of your components, such as your braking system and your tow bar wiring. And that's really all there is to it. So really saves you a lot of time and headache. You're not going to have to fight with anything. Everything's spaced apart good, looks clean and organized. I will say this base plate kit is going to work really well with those etrailer.com as well as the Demco tow bars, but they can also work with different brands of tow bars by using an adapter that you can find here at eTrailer. So at the end of the day, a base plate kit that really can't go wrong with, kind of that great all-around setup. Not only is it going to look pretty good, but ultimately I think one of the best features is the fact that it's going to be able to work and adapt to use with many different types of tow bars. So regardless what type of tow bar you have, chances are pretty good you'll be able to pair it up with the base plate. Now, as far as the installation goes, really not too bad. You are going to have to pull your bumper off, but that's only held in place by a handful of nuts and bolts, so really shouldn't give you any issues there. And more or less the base plate is just going to kind of bolt right up. A couple holes you got to drill, but everything's easy to get to, so really shouldn't give you a whole lot of issues. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put it on together now.
We'll begin our installation here underneath the vehicle. We're going to remove our underbelly here. The pins are across the front here, and in the center of those pins you'll have a small Phillips head screw that you can unthread from the center of it. Now sometimes you get lucky and it just threads right out of there, but on these older vehicles it's not uncommon for this to not want to unthread. You can see it's not coming out of there. It's pretty common because of the dirt and debris that builds up in there. So if that's the case, you can grab a screwdriver or a pick and you can get underneath the head of it and you can pop it out of there that way. We're gonna use a small pick on this one. And you just need to get underneath the lip of the screw head, and then you can pop the screw head out right just like that. And then this will just pop out. You should be able to just pull it out of there. And we'll just keep on popping those out. They'll just slide out of there. And we're just gonna brace it. It can't fall, because on the back side here, we've got 2 more pins. We're just gonna come around back and pull these pins out of here. You have one on the left, and that just pulls out of there just like the other ones. You gotta take out the center. And here you can see the little ear on the back side where they are. It's the exact same type of clip, so you'll remove the center, and then you can pull the clip out. We'll get the other one on the other side, and then this whole panel can drop down now. We can set this out of our way. So next we're gonna take off our bumper beam here. You may or may not have fog lights into them. These look like aftermarket fog lights. There could be factory ones in a similar location. If you've got any electrical connectors or any accessories you've added like this, you wanna make sure you get this disconnected. We're gonna probably grab my phone so I can take a picture of this wiring. Since this isn't a regular butt connector, since it's not a regular connector that you can't plug in wrong, it's just got these spade terminals on here, I could easily plug them in backwards or the wrong way. So we're gonna get pictures of all this stuff before we disconnect it. We'll now take an 18mm socket, and we're gonna remove all the nuts that hold our bumper beam on. You'll see here's the studs that come through on the side here, and there's a nut there and a nut here. On the other side of our frame here, you're gonna have 2 nuts in the exact same way where the studs come through, and then over on the other side of the vehicle, over on the driver's side there, on each side of the frame, you're gonna have bolts just like that. And then for these inner ones, you may need a pretty long extension if you're gonna be using an impact like this, in order to get these guys off of there, just because of the angle with the sway bar being there and stuff that you need to get around it. I got all 4 bolts removed from the passenger side over here. I'm gonna take one of those nuts, and I'm just gonna thread it on here a turn or so. This way when I go over to take out the bolts on the other side, this can't just fall off of here and we don't have to worry about it. It'll keep it up on there in place for us. So now we'll take our bumper beam off here. We had those single bolts that we threaded on here where we can keep our hand on it, make sure it's not gonna fall off of there. We can now just reach around the back side here, pull those just kind of a couple of safety nuts that we've slid on there on, and then we can walk this away. And it does kind of hang up a little bit on its bolts, so it's not uncommon. You gotta kind of rock it back and forth a little bit. There we go, to get it to come off of there. And then we're just gonna set this aside as well. We're getting ready to set our base plate in place, but if you have any electrical connections right here on the inside, on the passenger side, you'll wanna pop these off. These are gonna be kind of in our way here. You just set those, just kind of hang them back behind this piece here, and that'll keep those out of your way. So now we'll take our base plate. We'll need to clamp it into position because we are gonna have to drill out some fasteners. We're gonna start on the driver's side here and just kind of sliding it in towards the passenger side. So that way our base plate here, you can see, is behind the front of our frame here, right behind the attachment point, and just sits in like that. And then on the other side, it's just on the outside of the frame, and it comes in behind it. We can do to make this a little easier to get this clamped into place. You can put some like screwdrivers or pegs or something in here just to hold it. So we're just sliding that through, and that way it can kind of rest on that. And then over on this side, we'll slide one through here as well. And now we can get some clamps. That'll help to center it. So that way when we clamp it, we're gonna clamp it in the appropriate spot. So now we're gonna put our clamps in place here to clamp it on. And if you do have these tapered style tools like this, they can be real useful for ensuring that it stays centered. All our holes stayed centered when you're clamping it. We're gonna put a little bit more on there just to make sure this thing can't go anywhere. And then we'll get one on the other side. And yeah, if you can have these, they are really nice for keeping things centered. So it's clamped in place. We're just gonna use our base plate here as a template and drill through the hole here on the side. We're gonna use a 1/2-inch drill bit to drill it through it. Now that we've got it drilled out, we'll use the hardware that comes in our kit. You do get some Loctite included with the kit, so make sure you're putting this on the bolts. And we're gonna use this on anything that's holding our base plate in place. When we go to put our bumper beam back on, we're gonna put this on some of those nuts as well. Apply it to our bolt. And this nut plate here is going to slide in from underneath. And then you're just going to line that up. Before you thread your bolt into place, place on a lock washer and a flat washer, and then thread it into your nut plate. We're now going to just repeat this over on the other side to get that one drilled out over there and our same hardware installed. The only difference is you went from the outside of the frame through. On this side, you're just going to be going towards the middle of the vehicle through the inside of the frame. We can then go back and snug our bolts down. I like to make sure I got those rods inserted just so when we snug this down, we know that it's going to line up properly with our existing holes, because if they're not lined up properly when you snug these down, you go to put your bumper back on, you're going to have a real struggle getting all those holes and studs to line up. We can then go back and torque all of our hardware to the specifications outlined in our instructions. So now we'll take our bumper, we can go ahead and reinstall it. It should sit on top of your base plate. And we'll just line up our studs. It can be tricky getting them all to line up, so just take your time. If you have an assistant, somebody that can work with you, that can make things a little bit easier. Just because it's kind of an awkward piece to work with. There we go, that side slid on. So all 4 studs have to be lined up, so it's just kind of a rocket back and forth game. Once you get them through, you can place a nut just like we did before, and that'll keep it from falling off of there. And after you get your bolts started, you can come back in here and zip them down. And we're going to double check and make sure we torque our hardware here as well. Next, we'll need to install the permanent safety cables that come in your kit. These need to wrap around your base plate as well as around the frame. So we can just take them right here and just loop them right around, and it'll loop our base plate right to our frame attachment here. And after you've got it wrapped around, we'll attach our cables together using the quick link provided in the kit. And then if you had any electrical connectors you disconnected, make sure you reattach those. So now we're going to get our under shield prepared so that way we can cut this out so we can reinstall it. We can see where our attachment points went up into there. So we're going to be using those kind of as a guide here when we can make our marks. So we'll be trimming right about there and then trimming to right about here to clear. We'll make our marks over on this side the same way. So now we know how wide we need to trim it, and then we'll just take this over to our bench and we'll get this cut out. So we're just bringing our marks down some. We're going to try to keep it right at about the top of where our kind of the louvered portion is there. And we're just going to trim this out all the way across, down and around. We're going to make our marks on the other side the same way. So now we're going to go ahead and cut this out. We're just going to use our snips here to trim it out. And we're just trimming along the marks that we made. And then after you get it trimmed down far enough, there, you just have to start working your way down the rest of the section here. So after we trimmed it out in those 2 locations, we went to go check our test fit, make sure everything was going to fit fine, that it was going to work. And we found that we had a bulge right here in this area where this is kind of reinforced right here. So we made a relief cut right there so that way it's not bulging out on our panel here and it fits okay. So now we can just reinstall it. Just tuck right back up where it originally was located and reinsert your push pins back into those original locations. All right, now that we've got our panel reinstalled, at this point, the base plate is completed. If you've got any marks on here, like this yellow that we still got on here, we're gonna clean that up with just some alcohol on a rag. And then the ends that attach into your base plate here, these ends here that slide in, these will attach to your tow bar, and these can go attached to various different tow bars. So you'll want to refer to your instructions to find the appropriate hardware that you're going to use to remove the arms off of your tow bar and install the ones that come included with the kit. And we'll be showing you that later. We have a Blue Ox tow bar. So if you have the exact same tow bar, you can follow along with us. But if you have a different tow bar, you need to make sure you're using the instructions outlined in, that come included with your base plate.
And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the etrailer.com Invisible Baseplate Kit
On our 2007 Jeep Wrangler.